What if the secrets of a world champion could transform your training overnight? Ever wonder how Kilian Jornet pushes the limits of human endurance? Today, we're peeling back the curtain on his training formula. And trust me, it's not what you'd expect. Think it's all about relentless running? Think again. There's a hidden key that could redefine how you train.
So there you have it.
Ooh.
A glimpse into the training week of a true running legend.
A true inspiration.
It's this blend of brutal volume, calculated intensity, strategic recovery, all orchestrated to push the limits of human performance. Okay, so for those of us listening who, maybe aren't elite mountain athletes,
Right.
how can we apply this information to our own training?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to a few key takeaways.
Okay, I'm listening.
First, take a page from Kilian's book and start paying attention to your own training data.
Okay.
You don't need a fancy GPS watch.
Right.
Even tracking mileage and how you feel. That can reveal some really valuable insights.
It's about becoming a student of your own training.
Exactly. Second, remember that more isn't always better. Think about the impact of your chosen activities and adjust your training load accordingly.
So just because you can handle a certain volume in one sport doesn't mean you can handle the same in another.
Exactly. Listen to your body. Don't be afraid to dial it back when you need to, especially when you're transitioning between activities.
Okay, that's good advice. And what about Kilian's strategic use of intensity? How can we incorporate that?
That's where periodization comes in.
Okay.
Just like Kilian shifts his training focus through the year, we can all benefit from incorporating different phases of training.
Okay.
Maybe it's building that aerobic base in the winter, then adding in more intensity and race-specific workouts as your goal event approaches.
So find your inner Kilian and build your own training pyramid.
Exactly.
I love it.
First, I divide my season in two big parts. So normally the winter is more like a long volume zone 2. Most of it in skis, the 80% of this training is on skis. Then in the afternoons I go for a run in the treadmill. But that's every day 3-4 hours at zone 2 with a lot of elevation. That's kind of every day. And then in the summer, when I started running, then it's mostly depending the kind of races I'm doing. But for example, this year that I'm doing long races and short races, the goal has been to do a lot of distance to be able to prepare the long races, but with short sessions to be able to keep the speed for the short races. So for example, the last month it's been weeks around 210 kilometers, 2 to 3 hours in the morning, and then 40 minutes, 1 hour in the afternoon. Volume will be key, I think, and volume don't need to be running specifically. You can be cycling, you can be skiing, you can be doing other endurance sports, but in general, if we want to not fail at the last hours of an ultra, I think volume it's key. So put the focus on that. And also, if the race is in the mountains, where we will have a lot of elevation, that will be very different from if we train in the flat. The muscles will work very, very differently, so we need to put that into the training. And if unfortunately, we don't live in a place like this where it's easy to go up and down, I think we can work our muscles doing stairs and doing downhills, maybe in roads, even if it's not very, very steep, just to break the muscles. And you need to have fun. And if you are not enjoying the training, that's then you will not have progression. But just with bunch of climbing, in the mountains, and just very technical terrain, just where you need to running, but where you need to use the hand, use the brain to see the road. That's what I love. I like to discover a bit places, but for example, where I live in Norway, it's a bunch of these kind of things, big mountains with big ridges or things, or before I was living in Chamonix, and there is a lot of things like that, in the south face of Mont Blanc, or things like that. Every place, I think it has something that it's calling you, kind of, and you need to see what it is. If you are in the Grand Canyon, you want to run down there and up and do a long day because it's inviting you to do that. If you go to a place, I don't know, that you see it's this small hill, but it's steep, you want to do like there, like super fast. I think it's more like to listen what the landscape is inviting you to do and why. Like we have one life, we need to enjoy it. Like what we take is experience. The rest, like if it has not experience behind, like it's useless.
And it's important to remember this is just one piece of the puzzle. What makes Kilian so fascinating is how he combines this intense training with that rock-solid foundation we talked about.
Right.
The sleep, the nutrition, the mindset. It's the complete package that contributes to performance.
Okay, so it's like a holistic approach.
Yes. And Kilian actually visualizes this as a pyramid.
Oh, interesting.
He's adapted Steven Seiler's pyramid of endurance training needs.
Okay, so let's unpack this pyramid for a second.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about crushing workouts, right?
No, not at all. It's much more than that. Think of it this way. Those jaw-dropping race wins, right?
Yeah.
Those are at the peak of the pyramid, right? But that peak, it's supported by this massive foundation.
Have that base.
And Kilian is so meticulous about building that foundation, starting with what he calls the bedrock, circadian rhythms, stress management, and nutrition.
So it's like before you even lace up your shoes, there's this whole other level of preparation most people don't even see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about the groundwork.
So how does he actually put this into practice? Like, what does that look like in his day-to-day life?
So he's incredibly intentional about his daily life, minimizing travel to avoid messing with his routines, even having his team manage media requests to protect his training and family time.
Wow, that's next level.
It is. And he's created this training camp environment right at home, really emphasizing the stability of those routines.
Makes sense, right? Imagine trying to perform at your peak when you're jet lagged or stressed out of your mind.
Exactly.
But what about nutrition? We all know that's crucial for athletes, but it sounds like Kilian takes it to a whole other level.
He really does. He uses scientific data to fine-tune his calorie intake.
What? How does he even...
He does things like double-labeled water testing to understand his expenditure down to the calorie.
That's insane.
It's wild. And it's not just about carbs and protein. He adjusts based on inflammation levels, even gut bacteria.
Wow. Talk about next level. Forget carb loading. This is science loading.
Seriously.
But I think this brings up a good point for our listeners. Are you treating your body like a high-performance machine?
Right.
Are you paying attention to the bedrock of your training?
It's fundamental.
Because that's where it all begins.
Exactly. You've got to have that solid base.
And this leads us to the next level of the pyramid, building that base. Well, we've covered a ton of ground today.
Really have.
From the philosophy behind Kilian's approach to the, nitty-gritty details of his training data.
It's fascinating stuff.
Any final words of wisdom for our listeners before we wrap things up?
At the end of the day, training should be enjoyable.
Yeah.
Kilian's passion for the mountains, it shines through in everything he does.
Oh, totally.
So, find what you love, train with intention, and never stop exploring your own potential.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the training secrets of Kilian Jornet. Until next time, keep those legs moving, those minds engaged, and those adventurous spirits alive.